Night covered the silent hills of Israel. In the small village of the tribe of Dan, the house of Manoah was filled with sorrow. His wife was barren, and years of hope had turned into silence. As the wind passed through the wheat fields, a supernatural light appeared before her. An angel of the Lord appeared, surrounded by an intense glow that made the air tremble. He declared that she would have a son, a boy consecrated from the womb. He said that no razor would touch his head and that he would be a Nazirite dedicated to God. The child would begin to deliver Israel from the oppression of the Philistines. Trembling between fear and reverence, she ran to tell Manoah. Both fell to their knees as they realized that something extraordinary was beginning. On that silent night, the destiny of Israel started to change, marked by the promise of a man who would carry a strength that no army could contain. Months later, under the burning sun of Canaan, the cry of a baby echoed through Manoah's house. The boy was named Samson. From an early age, there was something different about him. While other children stumbled through the fields, Samson seemed to move with an untamed energy. His hair grew long, a symbol of the covenant between him and God. The elders watched the boy with curiosity and awe, as rumors of his divine promise spread among the tribes. As he grew, his strength became astonishing. To the young men of the village, it seemed impossible to defeat him in any contest. Stones that two men could barely lift were moved by Samson as if they were dry branches. Manoah always reminded him of his mission. Israel suffered under the cruel rule of the Philistines. One day, that young man would not be just strong. He would become a living weapon against the oppression crushing the people of God. Years later, Samson walked through the hills toward the Philistine city of Timnah. The sun scorched the land and silence dominated the narrow path between the vineyards. Suddenly, a roar tore through the air. A young lion leapt from the shadows, attacking with its fangs exposed. Any man would have fled, but Samson stood firm. Something inside him awakened like an ancient fire. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him with power. When the lion attacked, Samson seized it with his bare hands. The animal struggled, roared, and clawed the ground. But the man was like a living storm. With a brutal movement, Samson tore the lion apart as if it were a fragile lamb. Silence returned to the valley. He breathed heavily, staring at his own hands, surprised by the power flowing through his body. Samson decided to marry a Philistine woman from Timnah. During the wedding feast, surrounded by 30 Philistine men who watched him with suspicion, he presented a challenge. With a confident smile, he offered a riddle. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. For days, the Philistines struggled to solve it. The celebration slowly turned into tension. Frustrated and humiliated, the men threatened Samson's wife. They said they would burn her family's house if she did not discover the answer. Desperate, she wept before Samson until he finally revealed the secret. When the Philistines gave the correct answer, Samson immediately, consumed by anger, Samson walked alone through the fields as the wind stirred the golden crops. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him again like a storm. He went down to the city of Ashkelon, Philistine territory. There he faced warriors trained for battle, but Samson fought as if the earth itself gave him strength. His blows were swift and devastating. One by one of the warriors fell before him. 30 men died that night. Samson took their garments and returned to pay the wager of the riddle. As he handed the clothes to the Philistines who had solved it, his eyes were cold as stone. There was no joy, only a silent promise of destruction. Then he left Timnah and returned to his father's house. The conflict between Samson and the Philistines had only begun, and that bloody night would be remembered as the first strike in a personal war that would shake the region. When Samson returned to claim his wife, he discovered she had been given to another man. The betrayal reignited his fury with devastating intensity. On a silent night, he captured hundreds of foxes. Tying torches between their tails, he released them into the Philistines' grain fields. The fire spread like a glowing serpent through the darkness. Flames devoured crops, vineyards, and olive groves. The sky turned red as farmers shouted desperately, trying to save what remained. It was a brutal attack, not against soldiers, but against the prosperity of an entire people. When the Philistines discovered that Samson was responsible, their anger exploded. They burned Samson's wife and her family as revenge. When Samson heard this, he was devastated. The pain turned into a dark promise. The war would now have no limits. Thousands of Philistines gathered to capture Samson. The men of the tribe of Judah, fearing retaliation, handed Samson over bound to the enemy. When he was brought before the Philistine army, shouts of victory filled the air. But at that moment, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him again. The rope snapped like burned threads. Samson found the dried jawbone of a donkey on the ground. Armed with nothing but that bone, he charged into the army. The battle was brutal and chaotic. Every strike knocked down another enemy. The sound of breaking bones and cries of terror filled the valley. Dust rose as bodies fell all around him. When the battle ended, 1,000 men lay dead. Samson stood alone on the battlefield, covered in sweat and blood, holding the broken jawbone. It was an impossible victory that turned his name into a legend feared among the Philistines. Some time later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah. The Philistine leaders saw an opportunity. They offered her a great fortune to discover the secret of Samson's strength. Night after night, Delilah questioned him, cried, and begged. Samson played with her, giving false answers. Ropes, cords, and traps all failed. But Delilah persisted, pressing his heart until his resistance wore down. Finally, tired and in love, Samson revealed the truth. He told her his strength came from the sacred vow symbolized by his uncut hair. That night, while he slept in her lap, Delilah called for a man. Quietly, Samson's hair was cut. When he awoke, the Philistines were upon him. For the first time in his life, his strength was gone. The Philistines captured Samson and treated him with brutal cruelty. They gouged out his eyes, plunging him into eternal darkness. Chained, he was taken to Gaza as a trophy of war. The man who once terrified armies was now forced to turn a heavy millstone like a slave. Crowds came to see him, laughing and mocking. The Philistine leaders organized a great celebration to honor their god Dagon. Thousands gathered in the massive stone temple. They wanted to see Samson humiliated publicly. The blind man was brought into the center of the temple, guided by a young servant. The crowd shouted and mocked as he was displayed like a defeated animal. But Samson asked the boy to place him between the two central pillars that supported the temple. As music and laughter filled the air, Samson lowered his head and began to pray silently. He asked only for one last chance, one final strength to fulfill his purpose. The ground shook. The central pillars cracked with a deafening roar. The enormous temple began to collapse. Massive stones fell as the crowd screamed in panic. The entire roof crashed down upon the Philistine leaders and upon Samson. In that final moment, the man who had lived between failures and victories fulfilled his destiny. More enemies died in that instant than in all the battles of his life. The ground shook. The central pillars cracked with a deafening roar. The enormous temple began to collapse. Massive stones fell as the crowd screamed in panic. The entire roof crashed down upon the Philistine leaders and upon Samson. In that final moment, the man who had lived between failures and victories fulfilled his destiny. More enemies died in that instant than in all the battles of his life.